Like, I'm such an advocate for Jiu Jitsu or just really martial arts, but specifically Jiu Jitsu for kids with any kind of sensory disorder, because it's like they get used to it, and it's such a fun, great thing for them that they eventually, not every child, of course, every kid is different, but it eventually is so great for them. But having them in that really nice soft gi to start with makes it less of like a jarring thing. Like,
welcome to the show.
What's going on, everybody? It's Dante with another episode of Off the Mats podcast. Things have been a little wonky lately, just with content, topics, guests. I think it's been fun, but just kind of all over the place, all the same. So we're trying to bring it back to base with Jiu Jitsu. So my guest this week is going to be one of my teammates and good friends from Crazy 88. We're going to be talking with Coach Chrissy today. Hello, Coach.
hello.
And we're just going to have like a general jiu-jitsu conversation, just kind of talk about her journey, just the start, the middle, the current, and the future. So, hey, Coach Chrissy, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. So I guess my first question with you as far as training and everything is, why jiu-jitsu?
So I started wrestling when I was younger, probably about like 8 or 9. I started doing like rec league wrestling. I really enjoyed it. Super small for my age growing up, and I have a lot of siblings, so I always felt like I was always under some kind of attack, like with my siblings. So I convinced my dad when I was younger to let me do wrestling. Definitely did not go over well at my house. My mom was not a fan of it ever. I don't think she ever really became a fan either. But I convinced him to let me do it when I was younger, and then I wrestled till high school. And then once I got out of high school, there wasn't really anything for me to do outside, like as far as wrestling wise. Like, I was never really interested in like doing any other kind of martial arts. Like, I've never really been super interested in like the more traditional styles for me. So I had a friend who was working at the gym at the time, and it was actually the kid I went to prom with in high school, who was working at what was Ivy League MMA. And he was like, hey, we need somebody to come and work our front desk. Is that something that you'd be interested in? And I was like, yeah, I mean, it sounds cool. Like, I was going to school right down the street. At the time, I was in college. So it was like just a natural thing just to find a job really close to the school. And I got there and I was like, this is weird. This is like, because I was used to wrestling, but I had never experienced the gi before. So I just saw these guys like wrestling around in these like what looked like pajamas to me. And I was like, shit's gay. So I probably worked at the desk for like 2 months before I really even did a class there, because I didn't really understand the rule differences, the rule sets. So it took me a little while to be comfortable with that. And I mean, this is 10 years ago. So at the time, I was one of 2 girls in the school, or I guess 3, because Gina was there. One of 3 girls in the school, but I was only able to take morning classes at the time because I was working the desk at night. So then I started taking only morning classes, and we had a 6 a.m. class at the time that I was doing. Then I would go to school, and then I'd come back for the 11 o'clock, go back to class, and then come back at night and work the desk. So I've always kind of been interested in grappling, but yeah, I think jiu-jitsu, because jiu-jitsu was the closest thing to wrestling I could find. But I mean, I've stuck with it since. I mean, and now I don't do barely any wrestling in my game at all.
Yeah, I would not have. I remember you mentioned wrestling before. As soon as you started telling the story, I started remember like, oh yeah, we did talk about this a while back.
Yeah.
But I started thinking, like, yeah, like watching you grapple. It's like I would not
You
even
wouldn't
think
guess
for
that.
wrestling.
Yeah, I think I don't do it as much because a coach I had at one point was basically like I was training down at Camp Springs with Lloyd Irvin, and I'm like doing the white belt competition team thing and doing all of that, and he was like, "Look, you are not good enough at this to do it in this room, so you should probably stop before you get hurt." Because if you start shooting in, like I'm like shooting in on DJ Jackson, and DJ's like, "Can you please just stop?" So basically, Lloyd was just kind of like, "You should probably stop because you're going to get hurt doing it in this room." So then I was like, "Okay, well, if I can't do the only thing that I thought I knew, then what am I going to do?" So then I just really started pulling guard a lot more. I mean, I still will shoot in every once in a while, but very seldom. But.
I realized since we've been working takedowns recently, gi versus no gi. When I'm doing no gi, like I shooting, just going for the double leg, single leg is natural. But then when we had the gis on, and it just felt weird trying to shoot for a double leg because the grips.
Yeah, I always feel like almost like required to snap them before I start taking them down. But I mean, I think that's also just from years of teaching kids, and that was like such a fundamental like snap, double that we always taught the kids. It was like the first takedown they learned. So
Yep.
I try to do it as an adult, and it's very interesting because it doesn't work the same for adults as it does for kids. But yeah, I don't do it as often anymore. I mean, we're in takedown month. This month is like, that's all the curriculum's going to be for the rest of this month. So I'm excited to kind of see what happens. But I also have not done a no-gi class since I've been back to training.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that we were doing takedowns, my heart got super happy. And I was like, oh, yes, because I need that in my life.
Yeah.
And then once we put the gis on and started doing it the other night, I was like, oh, no, this doesn't feel right at all. I don't like this. I don't want to do this with the gi. I want like in the gi, I felt like I should just pull. Just go ahead and just get this to the ground. But yeah, we're working on it all month.
I'm a lot more confident right now in my takedowns when I'm already down. So if it's like I have somebody there in front of me and I'm down and they're trying to pass, that's like the most often that you'll see me actually shoot, because right now I have got my knee injury. So it's like lowering down my level very quickly is so stressful on my knee, to where it's like if I'm already on the ground, I'm like more likely to go in for an ankle pick or than anything. But I think it's more, I've been trying to train without my knee pads on because I usually wear like my wrestling knee pads under the gi, but I've been trying to train without them just to take a little something extra away, that it's like I don't want to have to rely on this thing. So because of that, I'm like, every time my kneecap like hits the ground too hard, I'm just like, oh God.
I will say that as excited as I was for us to start takedowns this month, and I don't know that this had anything to do with it, but Tuesday night, no gi, we're working the double leg, shooting, and then Wednesday, I couldn't walk.
Oh, yeah, because was it your legs or your...
So my legs were sore just from the movement, but my left knee was, I was having this sharp pain at, at the top of the patella.
Mm-hmm.
And, I still showed up Wednesday night to work with the kids. And Coach Brandon looked at me and was like, are you okay? Because every time I would
I thought you were limping a little bit.
The limp was a lot better by that point. And it worked out because I didn't go to Wednesday morning class.
Yeah,
my wife scheduled something. We had to sign some papers that I didn't read. I don't even know what I signed, but we'll see. We'll see when they say. So, yeah, like you just signed over all your action figures.
Oh my God.
But it kind of worked out that I didn't go to Wednesday class because I was going to, because I'm a knucklehead.
You would have been really sore on Wednesday. We did, it was all takedowns. And then we did like a from the back, like, I don't even remember. It wasn't a suplex, but it was like more of like a drop. But
okay.
that would have been rough because I know like I was doing it and I was like.
So we did a drop on Thursday night, but by that point my knee was feeling a lot better. Like I didn't feel any discomfort. This morning I went in and worked with my friend, and I walked out of the gym and my knee just started that shooting pain again. It hurts walking up the stairs, stuff like that, but it's all right. I'm 43. It's supposed to happen. I'm old. When you started competing in jiu-jitsu, like your first competition, what was that like for you?
Oh my God, this is such a horrible story. It's like such a bad experience. So my first tournament, my coach at the time did not want me to do it. Like he was like, no, you really shouldn't. Like you're not ready. And I was like, no, I've got it. Like I had some of my wrestling background, so I was like super confident. Been training for like maybe 6 months, 8 months. And it was to the point where he was like, no, you're not allowed to do it. And I was like, well, I am an individual. I think that this is such a horrible mindset, but there are so many people who feel this and they will go rogue. And so that's why I use this as an example because of why it's so bad to go rogue when it's like a coach doesn't want to go to this tournament or they say, you're not ready. I mean, who am I to say I am ready and someone else isn't? But, so basically I went out there, I registered, and he was like, I told you you're not ready. And then nobody coached me. So I went out, I tried to jump guard on this girl and I didn't have my grips right. My hand slipped off. I fell back and I knocked myself unconscious in my first jiu-jitsu match ever. It was super disheartening. I immediately went and cried. I went off in the bleachers and cried. And then I had more matches. I don't think I won a single match. But I remember the only compliment I did get was that I was very hard. I usually am pretty good about getting out of any kind of submission. I do have a hard thing. And I think that even now, I still have a bad habit of getting stuck in weird situations that I shouldn't be. You know what I mean? That are very easily avoidable. So I didn't get submitted throughout the day. Besides, I think she got the sub technically because I knocked myself out. So that was my first jiu-jitsu experience as far as in a competition. That was quite interesting.
So with having the wrestling background though, going into the jiu-jitsu competition, I guess it's a little weirder because you didn't have coaches and the support there. So I was also wondering just what was your feeling going into it as well? Were you nervous with this being a new sport, or they just feel like business as usual?
I was a little bit more nervous only because I didn't feel like I didn't really have the support to go up there on the first time. So I was definitely a little bit nervous, but I generally have been I'm usually pretty good in crowds. I actually usually perform better in tournaments than I do in the room, just because of the crowd aspect. I think I also get a little bit more confident going with people that I'm not friends with, especially I have been at my school now for 10 years and I've always been front of house kind of stuff. So now I'm the manager of the gym. So it's I don't want to be the one to go really hard on somebody in the room and then be like, oh, she's an asshole because of this, that, and the other. And I'm like, I mean, I'm really not, but which I don't think I've really ever had too many bad experiences with that. But I definitely have had some complaints, but now it's nice that we have so many girls in the room. So it's most time, if that ever happens, the other girls are usually they're my gatekeepers and they're like, I think that you're just being a baby. So, but I mean, so that was not the best first tournament experience, but I always encourage everybody just to try competing once. Because you could always go out there and hate it. I had a horrible first experience, but I still decided to go back and do it many other times after that. But so.
I will say that my first, when I first met you, I think you were injured.
Was I in the wheelchair at that point?
So I don't know that you were in the wheelchair. I think you had braces on. Like,
oh, okay.
It was. I remember because I remember seeing you in. It was like when I saw. I think you had on like braces on both legs, I believe.
Yeah. So that was then. You met me then right after my big surgery where I had to get cadaver patella tendons put in both legs, and I decided to do both at the same time. Which I would never recommend to anyone ever. I think it was like I had such a horrible experience. I ended up being in the wheelchair for like a month and a half, which they said it was going to be like 2 weeks. And then I ended up being just like bedridden and then like in a wheelchair for a month and a half. And then I had straight leg braces on for, I think, another month. And at the time too, it's like, I was a pretty big part of the coaching staff at my school. And I was coaching all the time. And at the time we had Pan kids and I was still coaching all the time. And then I had to have my surgery and I still went out and coached Pan kids with my leg braces on, which was so horrible. Cause I don't know if any of you guys have ever been in the pyramid, where they do Pans and they do, well, I guess Pan kids is in Orlando this year, but that's where they do a lot of the big tournaments. There's steps everywhere you go. I know that there is an elevator, but at the time I was so hard-headed and I was like, no, I've got it, like da-da-da-da. But I had both my leg braces on. And for anybody who was at Pans this year, I don't know if anybody who's listening to this might remember me in this way because it was such an ordeal. Because at one point, while I was coaching at Pans, I was getting really confident at that point. I'd been there for a few hours. And I'm going down the steps and my foot like slipped and I actually fell down the steps with my leg braces on. It was so horrible. I will thank the guy 1,000 times over if I ever see him again, the guy who helped get me up and like sat me down with him and his people. He was like, are you okay? And I was like, no, I'm fine. They just like a little shook up because you fall down these steps in front of everybody. I think you met me when I was out for the first injury, like the first real big injury. But now I don't think I'm going to have another surgery now that I've been kind of going back to the gym and like lifting every day. I mean, knock on wood, I should be okay if I can keep up the momentum.
That's good. I know early on seeing you with the braces on, because I'm reserved. I'm very like, but now I'm not, because I feel like that's home for me. So I'm very much, I come in and I'm awkward and semi loud. But back then I was just like, what happened to her? I don't know if I want to do this if she's walking around like that.
I know. I felt bad. It was like, it's such a horrible like marketing thing too. It's like, cause I'm like still there working at the gym with my braces on, and you almost feel like you should just lie to people when they come in and be like, no, this is definitely not from Jiu Jitsu, because it's like people see you and they're like, oh my God, especially when they bring their kids in. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, look, man, it's a freak accident. Like, it's like at that point, like I've always been super, super hypermobile. So the fact that I got so injured, and each of my injuries happened so fast. Like each time was a girl who was way heavier than me. Once was in the room, with a girl who was, I think at the time I was like maybe 120. She was like 165 and she jumped guard and my leg just like went backwards. And then the other time was it's now the Vegas Open, but they used to call it something else. Vegas, or they used to call it Vegas Nationals, I think. But it's same thing. I was doing blue belt and and then I got into the Open and I was super confident. I had seen this girl go. I'd gone against her before. I've never seen her jump guard before. She's usually like very much so like a takedown person. She did some foot sweeps, but I've never seen her, even in any of the video review I'd done, like never seen her jump guard. She jumped guard, same thing, but I had shot in for a takedown wall and then she jumped at the same time. And it was the other leg and my leg just got caught on the mat and it just went backwards and, super embarrassing. I was there also coaching the kids. And so we were stuck there for another 3 days, I think. And and I'm just like in pain. I think I was like 22, 23 at the time. So thankfully we had one of the dads with us because his kid was competing. We had him walk down from the hotel and like carry me back to the room because there's no like wheelchairs or anything like that. Like if you're injured, they basically like give you ice and they're like, all right, you're good. And I'm like, no, I'm not. So luckily I had Dave Miller who came and got me and just carried me back to the room. And I'm like in, obviously I'm in a lot of pain. I'm like crying. It's embarrassing. That was probably my worst. That is my worst injury I've ever had in Jiu Jitsu. And I think more like in something like that, it's like, it mentally fucks you because you're just like, you just got like this major injury in front of all of these people and you're in all this pain. And it makes you like almost like afraid to go with people because having the same thing happen 2 times with the same, each time was like a guard jump. So now every time I go in the room, like, right now I'm still kind of like coming back from taking some time off. And every time I'm like, please just don't fucking jump guard on me, please. Like, I'm just like not ready for it yet. I mean, I don't, it's not as prevalent right now. I don't know. I don't see it as much in the rooms that I'm in, but I'm always very hesitant. And especially when I go with like the teenagers, because the teenagers are always the ones. They're like trying to do flying triangles and stuff. And I'm like, look, you need to calm down. I have stuff to do. I got to go to work. Like, you're trying to ruin my life.
At one point they made it very clear, and this was early on for me. So this was probably like shortly after your injuries.
Yeah.
They're like, no jumping guard. And I know this was early for me because I remember this had to have been within the first 3 months, maybe 4 months, because we started doing no gi at night, like Thursday nights or something.
Yeah.
But I happened to make it in on another night for gi, and I jumped guard on someone, and I freaked out because in midair, as I'm doing it, I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." He caught me, and he was like, "It's okay, just that we don't do that here." And to be honest, I'm not sure why I jumped guard because I've never seen anything with guard jumping before.
It's
ever.
one of those things, man. People just like, they see it and they're like, oh, that's cool. And they know the closed guard position. So they're like, all I have to do is jump. I mean, in reality, like if you've been doing it for a really long time, like as long as you just get the right height, you should be fine. But it's like, it's one of those things I'm actually really bad about this. If you talk to a lot of people who I knew as a white belt, I was a very big guard jumper. So like, I remember jumping guard on one of the coaches. You remember Nelson?
I don't.
No. So Nelson was one of the black belt coaches back in the day. And he was an older guy, I think at the time, like, he had to have been like late 40s, I think. And I remember jumping guard on him in the room one time, and usually, as a white belt girl at the time, everybody's very nice to you. They just want you to stick it out. They want you to not quit. I remember jumping guard on him this one time, and he just looked at me, and I was like, he's about to beat the shit out of me. And I think we spent the whole rest of the class. I think he stayed with me the rest of the class, and he must have tapped me out at least like 15, 20 times. Because I think being an older guy, he probably was just like, I can't believe you just did that. I mean, it's one of those things, though. I think it's really important when you're in the room, if you've got like an outstanding injury, or maybe like there's this one thing that you've got, like, I mean, I'm sure for him, it's just that he's older. I mean, you either have to be experienced enough to shut it down while it's happening. Like I practiced guard jump defense for like 4 months, like every day in practice. When I came back, because I had some girls in the room that were really good, and I was like, they could see that I was like super afraid. So like, I think I had to have been for like 3 or 4 months. I had Nija Easton and Sajar Eubanks that were in the room with me, and they were just like, this is all you have to do is just here, or you have to like, they show me a bunch of defenses, but I would just have Nija sit there and jump guard on me, and I would just, and I would just plant my hands to the hips. So, I mean, and that helped me, but so not having that like immediate fear when people try to jump. And that was more just for like mental I think, more than physical. Obviously, it's going to help your legs, strengthen your legs up a little bit, having to hold somebody's body weight. But that helped so much. And I think coming back again, and I would like to make a master's run. So it's like with that, I'm going to have to probably start doing that again. Just honestly, because I know myself well enough to know that mentally that's going to always be my thing. I'm always going to get freaked out about stuff like that because I always make this joke. They're never going to get me back on an operating table because they're never going to get me in a wheelchair again. Because I had such a horrible experience just being in the wheelchair. But I mean, other than like my injuries, jiu-jitsu has been such a positive experience for me. But like anytime I think about those specific times, I'm just like, no.
I remember being at a Onaga, and Naomi, I think, was coming off of some sort of knee. I don't know if it was surgery, but I know she had been down for a minute, and someone jump guarded her. And I think everyone on the side, we all just gasped.
Yeah, I think it's more of a thing like when someone has an injury, and I'm still trying to break myself of that exact habit is when people do things like that, or there's like a weird like any kind of like a twister sweep, or like like when I see people trying to do like knee bars in the room, I'm like, dude, I have a really hard thing of like doing that sharp intake of breath because I get nervous for somebody else, but it's such a bad habit. Especially because that person could probably have really good defense. Like I know when I watch Mahoney go in the room, he has really good like knee bar and like ankle lock defense. But for me, I think I just get so nervous that I have a really bad habit of doing that jolt thing. And it's like, it's going to make everybody else super nervous. That and the guy who he's doing it against is more likely going to react hearing me do that, especially, the physical room is not that big, even though there's a lot of people in it. So it's like you can hear it when somebody does that, and you like look around to see who's hurt. So it's definitely something to be broken of, I think.
Yeah, I think when it comes to, when you're in the training room, especially, like the Wednesday morning class or the 7 p.m. Tuesday and Thursday class, it's. We're all training, we're all working to not necessarily, the white belts are learning, the blue belts and even the purple belts are there. We're just we're still learning, but refining, the stuff that we are learning there. So when it is time to go live, it's bizarre to think of one of the higher belts really trying to do anything crazy.
Yeah, I think it just depends on who's training for what. Like I always try to get Vanessa in the morning sessions, but she's got like all her workouts and stuff in the morning. And I'm always trying to get her in the mornings with me, but she's not going to do it. She's like, nah, I got too much stuff to do. She's like mainly a nighttime trainer, but yeah, I think it's important to kind of gauge that room though, and just see who's training for what. Because like a lot of the people in the morning sessions, I'll say, are a little bit more casual, right? Like, you get the competitors who are doing the 2-a-days, doing the morning sessions and the night sessions. You get the MMA guys who are in there at Elkridge doing their thing, but they never really come into the jiu-jitsu room unless it's that Tuesday, Thursday morning no-gi class. They're all, I think, in there for that class. But yeah, it's good. You just have to kind of keep track of it.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like going over to Elkridge is still kind of a new thing for me, just this year. But I'm getting that feel now when I get in there. I know who's who. I know, and no one knows about my stomach there. So that's one of the things I keep in mind is let me find someone that I know is going to be kind of more my pace in terms of just like I'm a hobbyist. I'm not here to, put it all on the line at 11:30 in the morning on a Wednesday. I got therapy after this. I got shit to do. I can't be
battling.
Yeah.
I did my first sparring class since I've been back on Saturday, this past week. And then I did the Monday Memorial Day practice. And I was just like, each of those practices, I was like, dude, this is each time, it's a little bit warm in the room on those days. And then the Saturday class is an hour and a half. It's a warm up and then it's rolling. That's all it is. And I walked in the room, and I I'm still getting back in shape. And Coach Julius was like, you know that this is 100% sparring. And I was like, oh yeah. I already knew that. And I had no idea. I literally went in thinking it was just, there was going to be like, the 30 minutes at the end. But I will tell you, I was not ready for that full hour. I was not.
So that was Memorial Day, you said?
Yeah, we had like a Memorial Day practice.
Yeah.
That Julius does like a structured open mat on days like that. So that way it's like there's nobody at the front. There's no client services, nothing like that. But that way everybody who wants to train can still come in and train. But they just have to realize that like the staff, they want to give the staff the day off,
So I knew that I wasn't going to be able to come in Wednesday morning. And I thought about that Memorial Day class. Mm-hmm. But then there's something told me, it was just like, don't go. Because number one, I don't think timing wise, I would have had time to do the full class just with Sarah having to go to work. But also, like, there's just this weird thing like, you know what? Just sit this one out, play it by ear. And then
the Memorial Day wasn't, I don't think it wasn't that bad. We did a lot of drilling. It was actually a really great class, but the Saturday was the banger. The Saturday is the long rolling one, but I think we still rolled for like, I don't know. I can't even keep track because once you start, it's like you don't look at the clock. Like you're just there until they say line up at that point. But I don't think it was too bad on Monday as far as like that goes. But I got a lot of good rounds. I mean, there was still like 30 people in that class.
Oof. So
I mean, it's the Saturday classes are banging, and then I think that there's got to be at least like 35 people, because I only know that because Julius and Sebastian are fighting right now to see who can get the highest average, because right now it's between Sebastian's Muay Thai all levels class, and then I think at the same time, don't quote me on this, but I think at the same time in the Jiu Jitsu room, Julius has that class. So at one given time, there's like 100 people in there doing class.
Wow.
I think there's also a boot camp class going on. So I'm like, but it's funny to see, like, they're always like, how many people did you have in your class?
Oh, because I'm biased, I'm always like, we need Jiu Jitsu to win. But but people love Muay Thai.
At Severna Park, it's kind of the highest class numbers are, I believe it's Justin's Monday, Wednesday Muay Thai, and then Ronnie's Tuesday, Thursday Jiu Jitsu are like, those are going back and forth for us. But it's always interesting to see how that kind of fluctuates based on like the summertime and when it gets warm out.
Yep.
Then everybody's like, no, the gi is hot. I don't know. I can't do it. But that's some East Coast stuff though.
Yeah, that gi, it builds personality when it's hot, because there have been, I remember we used to do in July, we would have no gi because it was hot. But
yeah, our old setup though, when it was Ivy League, the air conditioning was always kind of funky in that building. I'm so glad we got out of it, because it was like every time at the gym, it's like I would always tell them, like, dude, we can't have the AC go down, because especially like for the adults, it's like the adults can kind of like grit and bear it, but when you got like tiny ninjas, you got like little 3, 4, 5-year-olds in a gi and they're hot. It's like, and then you're trying to like obviously keep the momentum of the class going and have them not freak out because they're hot, and have them actually following the rules. They cannot be like super hot like that.
I mean, as we're getting into the warmer weather, a few weeks back, we had one specific little girl. She's constantly taking her gi like, it's hot, it's so hot, and it wasn't even weather-wise wasn't hot yet. It was still not chilly but comfortable. So I can only imagine, as we're going into the summer months now, what that's gonna do for her, because I've been seeing her more for our Wednesdays class. But I don't know, for me, I mean, I'm a heavy sweat. I'm the sweaty guy at the gym. When there are the jokes about the sweaty guy at the gym, those jokes are for me.
Hear that Mahoney is the sweatiest dude on the planet. Like washing his gis and stuff, I'm always like, they immediately have to go in the wash, because those things are disgusting.
I've after class, a couple times I threw my gi into the trunk and I forgot that I
you
was
forgot.
there. And this is like, August, September, it's warm. And it's like, oh no, that's opening that trunk was a nightmare.
Have you seen, I'm not sure if you're like a TikTok person, but on TikTok, there's this trend of like clothes stripping. So it's not what you think it is. It does not like anything dirty. Yeah, it's just the process of stripping all the excess soap and sweat and oils out of a piece of clothing. So I actually tested it out with our rental gis because you know how like we've got gray mats, so like your shoulders will start to get like a little bit like not great, and like because we wear all white gis like for Crazy 88, it's all white gis. So I tested it out, and I'm gonna do it again because I want to try it twice and then hang on the gis to see if it messes with the integrity of the stitching. So but it's really exciting for stuff like that, especially like we do like to provide rental gis to people who are coming in trying it out for the first time, because buying a gi is it is an investment if you don't know if you're gonna like it. So that's a cool thing for you to try, especially with like I said, us being all white gis. When those white gis get dingy, it's like ugh.
Initially, I think the coach was wearing black, and then I just got in a black gi, and then we switched to white, and I was like, oh no, I don't have money to get another gi right now. But some like just because our phones listen to us, and I go on Facebook, and I don't even know where I got it, but there's this white gi Maeda on clearance, $40.
Nice.
A2 and A3. Now, because I'm me, I shrink stuff. So I was like, let me get this A3. I know I'm going to shrink it. It never shrunk. So
there are some gis, they just don't shrink, which is great. Yeah. Like I know that we don't sell them at the gym anymore, but I've always been a super big advocate for the breakpoint gis, because I love giving them to kids, because I tell the parents, you get parents with like 3 and 4 kids in the program, and then you're telling them they gotta hang dry this piece of clothing, and they're like, no, I'm not doing that. So the breakpoints are nice. And honestly, too, is we sell the Moyas now, and I don't think the Moyas shrink very bad either.
No, my Moya is pretty good. It still fits pretty well. The top, especially, the pants are a little high, but they're not as bad as the elite sports, because they sent me stuff early on, and immediately just
I know. I always
high waters
when they come into the gym. I think everybody always assumes that the front desk or like management, that they want you to buy their stuff because they make money. Of course, that's not like. But also, we're not going to buy a shit product. Yeah. And I'm not here to shit on anybody with an elite gi. But what I will tell you is, if you spend a little bit more money on getting the gis that are sold, I'm going to say most schools will only carry gis that are good quality. If you're going to a legitimate jiu-jitsu school, then they're going to sell gis. And if they're going to sell gis, most often they're not going to sell shit gis, because they don't want to get the complaints from the clients and then have to deal with that kind of customer service aspect of it. So we only stock gis that are going to be better quality. But I don't know. I just feel like it's just worth spending that little bit of extra money. What is the elite gi right now on Amazon? It's got to be $40-$50.
The last I saw was 55, I believe. So
you're going to spend $55 on, first of all, unless you are a short, stocky person, those gis fit weird as shit. They fit like almost like a judo. Not obviously, it's not that dramatic, but you always see the jiu-jitsu gis where they're nice around the wrist. But then there's so much extra like armpit material, which is why I only will buy either female cut gis or long cut gis. So like I am not very long, but I'll get the A0 long from Hyperfly because they make a really nice gi too. Yeah. So I'll wear like an A0 Moya, or I'll wear an A0 long for the Hyperfly, because then I throw those bad boys in the dryer nonstop. Like I actually regret getting the long for the Hyperfly, because they just didn't shrink. Like the pants right now, I gotta like hike them up like to my belly button to get them at the height that I like them, because they just didn't shrink, which is a great thing. I don't like regret buying my Hyperfly. I just wish I would have gotten it true to size if I would have known it really wasn't going to shrink. I'd like to see Hyperfly do more, or maybe not do more, but have a steady stock of kids gis, because like for the kids, those are so nice to have because they've got that. I don't know exactly what it's called, but like the way that the sleeves are stitched. Have you ever looked at them?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the way the sleeves are stitched are really nice. But for kids, man, if we're looking at kids gis, Moya kids gis are hands down the best because especially they're so soft. We're like kids putting a kid in a gi is already hard enough if they're a beginner and you got to like explain the whole thing, especially like where we live, we've got a good influx of like autistic children in the area because there's so many resources in the area for them. And jiu-jitsu is great for them. Like I'm such an advocate for jiu-jitsu or just really martial arts, but specifically jiu-jitsu for kids with any kind of sensory disorder because it's like they get used to it and it's such a fun, great thing for them that they eventually, not every child, of course, every kid is different, but it eventually is so great for them. But having them in that really nice soft gi to start with makes it less of like a jarring thing. Like, I mean, like look at like Sean Garlington, man. Sean Garlington, I think he got Athlete of the Year at his high school this year.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yep.
Dude, he's such a cool kid, man. It's so weird that he's like graduating high school because he started training when he was like maybe 8. And it was like at first he wouldn't talk. He wouldn't make eye contact. He didn't really care to be touched by like most, like he would go with his brother and his brother was really the only one. Now, half the time when I see him, I'm like, all right, Sean, get off me. Like, that's enough.
He's very, like, I love every time I see the kid. He's just so awesome, so open. Just, hey, Dante, comes over, pats me on the back. And, I'll mess with him a little. It's like, we're like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Are you threatening me? It's like, no, I'm not threatening you.
Yeah, he does that, man. He does it to me where he did it to a point where I was like, Sean, I was like, I am smaller than you by like a good amount now. Cause Sean's like, I think at this point he's got to be hitting 6 foot almost.
Yeah, he was, I know he was taller than me even last time I saw him. It's been over a year, just pre-COVID.
But imagine this kid, he's like 6 foot. He's got to be what, 170 at maybe 160. I don't want to like shame him if he's 170, but and then he's like just always, but he thinks that he's like a little kid still.
Yeah.
And he's trying to be rough with me. He's always like punching me in the shoulder. I'm like, all right, man, chill out. Like at one point I had to like talk to his mom and I'm like, look, can you please remind your son that he is the size of of an adult at this point? And he's over here like being rough on everybody, which, I don't want to sound like a baby about it, but every time you'd see the kid, he'd like punch me in the shoulder or he'd like put me in a headlock and he's like sneaking up on me, putting me in headlocks where I'm like, man, I'm just trying to do some paperwork. I'm trying to hang out. You're over here trying to murder me. Like, I don't appreciate it.
No, he's a great kid. Anytime I see that they post, any update on, what he's doing with school, especially, that makes my heart happy. Like, I just can't stop smiling.
He's such I think it's just because he's like, with when you teach kids, it's just like they're so infectious, right? No matter what their attitude is, it is infectious. So if the kids are being little turds, it's infectious. It makes you mad. It makes you kind of like, you're like mirroring them. But when you've got kids like Sean's a great kid to have in the room, whether it's adults or kids classes. He wants to help. He's like a great advocate for the program. Like he's just a great kid, but also he's so happy. Even when he's there getting whooped up on, he's like happy about it. He's like, I'm just here.
He and Mouth, like early on for me. Well, I mean, my first experience was getting just thrown around by Mouth.
Yeah.
And that's why I came back. Cause I was like, I'm not getting beat up by a 14-year-old kid. And my goal was always like to finally get him back. And I rolled with him before he left for college.
Yeah.
I never swept him, but he didn't sweep me either.
it's one of those things. It sucks because you see so much progress and you see so much potential in these kids, and then you lose them for whatever reason. But like going away to for Michael, like Michael Garlington was on a path, like he was going to do very well, and then he went away to college. He's having a great time out there. I'm so glad he loves it out there at Salisbury. But it's like I'd love to see him obviously graduate from high school, find a good job, be happy, all of that. But in a very selfish way, I want to get him back in the room because. We got Jacob, who's still we've got all these kids that are still in the room that grew up in the program, but it's nice to have that first. I mean, he wasn't the first kid to really become a successful adult in jiu-jitsu, like as far as competitively. Like I would say that we've had some before that, but he definitely made the biggest splash, right? Yeah. Like he's such a goober and he's just like so full of himself, and it did catch him a lot of slack for a while. Because, like, he would go and he would just, like, fuck these adults up and, like, the blue belt and the purple belt division. And he's, like, orange belt or green belt at the time. These adults would get so mad about it. But also the fact that he was so aggressively confident. Like, I remember this one tournament where we had to actually talk to him about it because he was going in at the tournament. And, like, when they would tap hands and they would be, like, kind of, like, sitting there, like, getting ready to grip fight. And he would always like shake the guy's hair, you like you like rustle a kid's head.
Yeah,
he would do that to these grown men, and I'm like, dude, you gotta chill, Or he would get somebody would get in the turtle, and then he would just like sit there, like literally just back surfing on them.
Yeah,
I'm like, dude, these guys are gonna quit. They're gonna quit jiu-jitsu after this.
He's done that to me before when I've turtled. And I didn't know how to react. I was just like, I mean, I kind of just accepted it. But like he and Sean, they both, I don't know, just kind of the way that they carried themselves, it always helped me because for a while I still do now, but early on, especially, I was having panic attacks before coming into class. I would sit in the car, go through what I have to go through. I still come in.
Yeah.
But over time, I would, come in there, work with them and just they're having a good time. Everybody's having a good time. So it was kind of a reminder to myself, go in there and have a good time. Like this isn't the end of the world.
Yeah, I think especially too, it's good to keep that attitude, especially for like the white belt classes. Is like, man, when you're starting out as a white belt, it is. You don't know what you want out of it yet. I mean, there are white belts that come in and they know that they never want to compete or they know that's the goal. But it's like, it's nice to keep the room for the white belt class a little bit lighter. And then once you get into the intermediate and the advanced classes, that's where you can kind of start shutting that down. But it is nice to kind of see that they kind of keep the room a little bit more positive. I mean, positive for some people. I got so many. I'm not going to lie. Over the years, I got so many complaints about the teenagers that were just beating the shit out of the adults. And I'm like, man, that's such a dumb thing to complain about. Like, in my opinion, like, you're complaining that these kids got good at this thing that you're just starting.
Well, I mean, that's your own ego beating you up, though. I mean, and again, when I first got in there, Michael, he stormed me around.
Yeah.
Just like, and that was motivation for me. He was like, okay, I'm going to get this kid. He's growing. He's still a kid at this point. So he's only going to get better. He's only going to get stronger. I'm like, sooner or later, I'm going to catch up to this dude. And, never did. At the very least, again, I kept him from sweeping me and making me look silly.
Yeah.
But, I couldn't sweep him. So I was like, all right. And then Jacob actually, did he sweep me? I think he may have taken me down recently. Or no. We were doing King of the Hill. And he was down. And he had I don't know what happened, but he ended up somehow on my back. And it was weird because I was like, how did you get there? I was like, all right, you know what? I'll be back. Went to the back of the line, just waiting on him. And class ended. But it's like seeing these kids grow and getting better. That's just one of those things, especially with jiu-jitsu, that I always just preach to everyone. It's like, look, I don't think jiu-jitsu is for everyone.
No.
But I do think everyone should, try it to find out if it's for them.
I think it's important. I mean,
Yeah.
because I like you're saying, like those kids. It's cool to see. I think being there for as long as I have, all of the kids who've grown up in the program, I've been there since their first day, and I was there and I checked them all in. I got them all their first gis. For most of them, I was their main coach for most of their time coming up in the kids program. I mean, I'm not coaching any of the kids anymore, but it's like it is very cool, and I think it should be the goal of every coach for jiu-jitsu or anything, that the kids surpass you. And almost, I'm not going to say every one of my kids, but I'm going to say most of my kids have surpassed me in jiu-jitsu. Like freaking Cece Fowler. Cece Fowler is in the Army now, and she like won. I know that combatives is like nowhere near jiu-jitsu, but she won the entire combatives thing for her entire unit, which is great. Like, she's a skinny girl. You know what I mean? Cece is strong, but like she does not weigh that much. You know what I mean? So it's really cool to see stuff like that. Jacob's still training. I'm excited to see where he goes now that he's come back from wrestling. I mean, not in the greatest of circumstances. Obviously, he got his senior year of wrestling stolen from him because of COVID. So it's like it did force some of those kids who were going to make that high school wrestling run to see if they can do it. It sucks to see them come back and kind of not have the greatest attitude about it because they wanted that last year, right?
Yeah.
Which I think that if you're going to do wrestling, you should still be able to do jiu-jitsu on the side. It's not like, I know these kids are practicing every day, but it's like, you're done. I mean, I guess I say it now, but I'm sure I wouldn't have done it if I was in high school. But I'd like to see all the kids who do go and do some to go out for wrestling to still make it in the room and do jiu-jitsu, at least do like the no-gi classes or whatever. It's not like you're going to automatically get on your back. Hopefully to like just be sitting on your back in your wrestling match and be like pinned. Like, oh, I thought we were in jiu-jitsu. Like, how often would that even really happen?
Yeah. That's one of those weird things too, when you think about the two sports and comparing them, where wrestling, you never want to be on your back, that, you lose. Where jiu-jitsu, you don't necessarily want to be on your back, but you can create offense from your back.
Yeah.
With Coach Alex, Coach Mike, as I butt heads with them every so often on the mat. One thing I said to Coach Mike recently was, dude, I'm afraid of a wrestler who embraces jiu-jitsu. Because it's like
Mike, what I will say is I love Alex Ward, but he never he always was a wrestler doing jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Whereas Mike Morano is really doing it. Like his jiu-jitsu, like I'm like, oh shit. This is not just you hanging out, because it actually showed up on like my story the other day. It was like 2 years ago, maybe last week or something, was Mike's first jiu-jitsu class. Because remember, he was like teaching, I think he was helping out with the kids' wrestling classes at that point. And Finn, his son, had been there for like at least 6 years at that point. And Mike had never had any desire to do class. Never. And then he did the jiu-jitsu class, and I was like, he's like, it feels weird. I'm in these pajamas. And I'm like, and now look at him.
Yeah, he and I, during King of the Hill, every time in King of the Hill, I end up matching up with him. And I just look at him, I sigh, we tap hands and say, let's go. And the last time we went, was it Thursday? I think we were in the gi. And we ended up in a weird position where his wrestling would have come in handy, but I think he chose not to use wrestling. Mm-hmm. And went, with jiu-jitsu, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, oh man, he's really, he's utilizing, all the tools now. He knows that he could, just hit me with a cement mixer right now, easily, without question. But he chose not to. And then I guess we broke up into two groups. We bet by weight for King of the Hill. So Finn was over there just murking all of the teens. And
I think Finn at this point, he sits on the kids and on the lightweight side of the room. But I'm like, do you really belong here right now?
So I'm, as I'm standing in line waiting to go back around, I'm looking over there, and then Ronnie comes over and tells me like, after Finn's next go, I want you to switch and go over with him. And I'm looking like, oh, really? Like, not because like I'm bigger, but it was more like thinking like I've rolled with Finn, and he's a handful. He not just for kids, but for adults. So him, dumping Kyle, and then the only reason he didn't get me is number one, I'm 215 pounds, but also he was exhausted.
Yeah.
Like, he tried to go for a trip and his leg, he didn't wrap it, and we both fell backward on him, and he was out. And then I went to him after class, was like, dude, you had me. You're tired. I just saw you go with 5 people in a row in King of the Hill. Like, there's no way you would have energy for me. But he's another one, just watching him grow and watching him progress, and just, I love watching all the, the students just grow in this sport. So, like I said, I don't think it's for everyone, but I think everyone should give it a shot. And, if you don't like it, you don't like it. If you do, you stick with it. Or there's sometimes you may not like it, but you want to still give it that shot and see where it can take you.
You see people like that every once in a while where I'm like, they don't know if it's for them, but they're going to keep doing it for a bit to try it. But then the one thing that you'll get with that every once in a while is you get somebody in the room who isn't sure if they like it or not, but they just have a shit attitude about it. And I'm like, man, if you're going to be that kind of stuff is just is very interesting, because it's not for everyone, but if you're going to be here, at least try, right?
Yeah.
Like, I get some people like that in the room even now, where like I'm like, I was like, I get it, right? You're trying it out, you're trying to make it work, but like, put in the effort, show up on time, be respectful, and give effort.
Yeah.
Really, like, because if you're not going to do those very simple things, you're not going to get better, and you're not going to like it.
No, and I will say early on for me, I didn't think jiu-jitsu was for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm coming from football and basketball, so this isn't my normal. So I remember trying to tackle Frank, like it was football, and he choked the shit out of me. Like, it. And it was because for the longest time I didn't have a gi. So it was during a gi class, and I'm still showing up without a gi. He took my shirt and choked me with my shirt. And that was the moment where I thought to myself, it was like, I don't know that I want to do this anymore. I just got choked by my own shirt, and that's not okay.
I know, it's so funny. Like, you get people and parents, like not and mainly parents, who will ask like what the point of the gi is. And I every time I have to say the same thing, and I always feel so awkward saying it. And they're like, well, it doesn't seem like it. Like, I'm not walking around with a gi on. And I'm like, do you walk around naked?
Yeah.
I'm like, at what point are you just walking? First of all, if you're saying that you want to do this for street self-defense, all right. But are you walking around naked, or are you fighting on the beach? And then if that's where you think you're going to get in a fight, you're a beach bum and you want to just get drunk on the beach and fight people, then okay, cool, do no gi.
Yeah,
I get parents who argue that all the time.
I've had friends argue that with me. Not necessarily, argument, but just more so, they'll ask the same thing. It's like, well, why are you in a gi? Why not this way? Because, a lot of friends, they watch UFC, Bellator, just MMA in general. So they look at the gi as just kind of like, oh, well, that's dumb. I don't see Anderson Silva wear that. I don't see, the Diaz brothers wearing that, which the thing is, though, they're jiu-jitsu players in the gi. So if you know anything, they're black belts in the gi. Yeah. But it's just goofy, when people, for either side really to have any animosity towards, people are in the gi. And I know I post memes and make jokes about either or, but that's the point. I make it about both.
It's just like, if you go too hard one way or the other, and you're like, we're only a gi school. Like, there's There's some in the area here. What is it? I think Tiger Shulman's was doing that for a long time. I don't know if they're doing it anymore. But then you got like the 10th Planet guys, like where I'm like, look, I get it, but like the 10th Planet, like jiu-jitsu people, where I see them, I just don't get the just spats thing. I'm sure that there's like, I'm not a man, so I don't know, but the guys who wear the spats, I'm like, how is that comfortable?
It's
like,
not.
What if your spats rip out from underneath you? Like, I don't know. I always wear shorts over my spats, so anytime I see the 10th Planet guys and they're just in the spats or those shorts, the men's no-gi shorts. I'm like, this is a lot. This is a lot of you for me that I don't need.
Yeah, there's some discomfort there. I think there was one time early on we're in no-gi and Huggy just had on just spats, no shirt.
I was going to use him as an example. He is actually not. I don't want to like say that this is, but he is one of the main reasons why we have our uniform policy right now. Because in that instance, I was like, because it's like Huggy's pretty dark skinned. And he was wearing, I think they were either his bright purple ones or his bright red ones. And he did not have underwear on underneath. And I was like, I literally went up to him and I was like, look, I can see all your business. This is too much. Like, I don't know, man. That was so funny. And I like, but now we just do the spats. The uniform is you can just wear no-gi shorts, or if you want to wear spats underneath, you can do that, but no just spats. Not even for the girls, because it's like, man, I'm not out here to impress anybody. I'm trying to do something. And
exactly.
I understand that. Like, you get the girls who want to do like all of no-gi in like a sports bra, and I'm like, what are you trying to do? What are we here for? Especially jiu-jitsu. I get Muay Thai. Like when I do Muay Thai sparring, I would love to do Muay Thai sparring in a sports bra and like just my shorts. But not jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and jiu-jitsu especially, it's for me, it's a comfort thing, just what I'm wearing. Like I tend to wear long sleeves.
Yeah.
It's comfortable for me. Also, again, I'm the sweaty guy. So wearing those long sleeves, at least kind of on the arms, it's not as gross. So at least you have some kind of grip, even though it should be trying to give them put them at a disadvantage, but I'm a nice guy. But I'm always just about comfort. I had one friend come in. I think he did a trial maybe a couple years back. Bless you,
Matt D.
And I remember I was working with him, and then we're doing back takes and rear naked choke. And Naomi had my back and was going for the choke, and he was like, so y'all just get all up in there, don't you? And, I laughed at him. I was like, dude, like, we're here. Like, we have an objective. We have a goal. And the goal is to learn this move and also not to get choked. Yeah. So, I'm not thinking about who's on my back with what on my back. I'm thinking about, I don't want this individual choking me unconscious, because that's not where I'm here for. I'm here to learn. Yeah, I'm not here to go to sleep.
You see people who come in and they're like so uncomfortable at like going with the opposite sex. And it's like, I mean, you reach a point where it doesn't matter anymore. Like, I'm sure as a white belt, it gets like weird because it's your first time coming into close contact, with somebody that you don't know. Right. But I think everybody kind of gets used to it after a while. As long as your school has like a good dress code policy, it should, it shouldn't even really be a thought. Right. Because there are plenty of schools who don't have a dress code. Right. There is no-gi dress code. There's no gi restrictions. And I get comments and questions about that a lot at Crazy 88. And it's like, this isn't a fashion show. I'm not here to impress anybody like with anything other than what I'm doing. Right. Like you can we patch the gis up, do whatever, but it's like that. And like, especially the no-gi uniform, we get arguments about that. I'm like, why does it matter what you're wearing?
With our uniform policy now with just all white gis, it's better than, you have some gyms that you have to buy their gi specifically. Yeah. And that's, that to me is more stressful than like here. I like the gis that we have. I have a Moya, and thank you for, steering me in the right direction. Cause I was like, let me go ahead and get this larger gi. It'll shrink. Yeah. and it has been minimum shrinkage. So it's like, well, I'm glad I didn't get the larger gi, but I have been looking. It's like, okay, I need to get a second, well, really a third white gi here because during the week I'm just rotating between the two. Like my wife's starting to get kind of annoyed with me doing laundry every single day.
I know. I don't even want to talk about the laundry, man. Because I think I've got like 6 or 7 white gis in rotation right now, and then Mahoney's got probably the same amount, and then I take home all of the rentals from the school.
Mm-hmm.
So we offer rental gis at the school. It's like, I think it's like $8, and then you don't have to worry about washing it, or maybe you're trying out the class. But I take home all of those. I probably do like 3 or 4 loads of gi laundry just for the gym, and then I do mine, and then Mahoney's, and then his Muay Thai stuff, the no-gi stuff. It's just like,
actually, that answered my question on the rental, because I almost came in on Saturday because I ended up leaving my car at work, and then when I got dropped back off, I was like, I don't have my gym bag, but I could still go there. But I don't know how the rental process works. So I was like, I'm just going to stay here at work today. I'm just going to hang out.
Yeah, it's easy. It's like, man, we offer rentals for like no-gi and gi. No-gi is just rash guards. You have to wear your shorts that you have. We don't have rental shorts right now at Severna Park. I think we are going to do them though. Mm-hmm. It's just waiting till the new like storage system gets put in, and we'll do them. Because it's like there is that one-off thing where you forget your stuff, and forgetting a T-shirt for Muay Thai is one thing. Forgetting your Jiu Jitsu gi and having to buy a new gi is a whole nother thing.
I try to keep a gi in the trunk of the car, but I've just been not paying attention to life. I have one last question before wrapping up here, with just the experience that you've had with training, whether it be wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and just being in this world for the last 10 years. Anyone new that's coming into training, what advice would you give them?
Man, my advice is ask more questions. Just ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. This one sounds so stupid. If your school gives you like any kind of reading material that's made by the school, like pamphlets and things like that, read that shit. We spend so much time making that stuff, and it answers so many questions about what to expect in class, like policies, things like that, because it's like you get so many people who will quit for like silly reasons. Like I had this the student quit a few weeks ago because she didn't realize, I don't even want to go into it, but she like didn't realize this very simple, very easy etiquette rule at the school that I was like, yeah, we have to do this. And it was like regarding getting dressed. And I was like, yeah, like you have to like get dressed in the tents, da da da. And she was like, well, I don't feel like I should be shamed into getting dressed in the tent. And I was like, nobody's shaming you. But like, it was like very weird. So, and she hasn't been back in since then. So I'm like very concerned that this is going to lead to it. But yeah, just be respectful. And especially with girls, man, I don't even know how to word this, is like find a group of girls and don't rely on an accountability buddy like to come to class. Don't be like, oh, well, are you going to come? I'll come if you come. Don't do that shit, because guess what? If your accountability buddy quits, then you feel some kind of way about coming back in. Like I've had so many like training partners over the years where we would commit to going to classes at the same time, and then the other person would just pull out, or maybe I would pull out, and the other person wouldn't come. And you're stunting yourself so much by doing that. Like, even right now, I always like text some upper belt girls to do morning class, but I'm going to be there either way. I'm letting you know I'm going to be there if you want to come and do stuff with me, but like, do the shit on your own, man. Don't rely on anybody else to be there for you, because in reality, this is an individualized sport. This is not a team sport. We are a team. But you got to do it on your own. You got to really show up.
I especially agree with that, because I came into this by myself. For the longest time, like I said, I'm awkward and shy. I talked to Joe a few times. But otherwise, I didn't really talk to anyone at that gym. I just had to keep showing up every week. I could only show up on Saturdays too. So I had to show up every week just thinking like I'm that weird guy and nobody knows me. They don't even know why I'm here, but I keep showing up. And eventually it's like, look, you got to make it yours. You know, you can't say, all right, we train together and only together. So thank you for that. I not really like I have a few people who listen who I know want to get into jiu-jitsu. It's just that, taking that first step. And I think that advice, is very helpful to them and me harassing them saying, come on, dude, get on the mat.
Almost every jiu-jitsu school now offers some kind of free trial. Try different schools. If you go to a school and you hate it, go to another one. Maybe it's the way they do their thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think I got very lucky, you know what I mean, to find the school that I did at the time in my life that I was in. Like, I was really happy there. Like, I really enjoyed it. So, if you go to a school, maybe, and you don't like it, try another one. If you're motivated by a coach that's going to, like, really push you and give a shit, go to a competitive school. Because even if you don't compete, they're going to care because they're trying to get you to compete, right? And I think so many people get afraid to do schools that that compete very often. And like, nobody said you had to do it, right? Like, I mean, think about this. At Crazy 88, maybe only 25% maybe of the student base, including the children, compete.
Yep.
You can be the other 75. Like, go to a school, like try out different schools.
Before I actually showed up to Ivy League, I think a year, maybe 2 years prior, I always forget about it because I did a trial and I was so unimpressed. Like I just block it out of my memory.
We get people in all the time who have done trials at other schools, and it's like they're just. I don't knock anybody who tries to Creante school hop their trials, but like if you find a school that you do like, listen to your gut, man. But we've gotten a lot of students who have done trials at other schools. You know,
I went to school in Columbia, out in Columbia, Maryland, not Columbia for anyone listening, because people like, oh, he went to South America. Like, I don't have a passport, so no. I'm not going to South America anytime soon. But I did the trial out in Columbia, and a friend of mine, he took me there, and I was really concerned about my stomach. Was the big thing. It was like, I don't know how this is going to work. So I trained with him the first class, and then they did King of the Hill, and somehow, some way, I passed someone's guard. And I was like, oh my stars, I don't know what this means. After looking back on it, I think that dude let me pass.
Yeah.
But then I swept someone the next go around. I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know. And then I held someone in my guard, and they just kind of stood up and walked me over and flipped me over my head. I was like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. But it wasn't that kind of made me not like the school. The school that was actually fun. But a lot of guys, they're all looking to be the next UFC champ. So, being there, it like I could feel that weird tension, and it could just be me overthinking it. But I just felt like, me and one other person were new people there, and we were just being ignored. And I was like, okay, this is weird. Like, we're getting no help here. Then one of the guys came over eventually and helped. I think on my third trial class there with them. Yeah. It was really nice. I actually saw him at Shogun Fights a couple years later. And it was like, oh, I thanked him because I was like, I didn't quit jiu-jitsu altogether. I just didn't want to do it at their school. Yeah. But my next stop, a couple years later was Ivy League, which is, now Crazy 88. And I'm glad that I stuck with it, even though, like I said in the beginning, I didn't think this was for me. I was like, I'm about to just go back and play, football on Sundays and basketball on Tuesdays. And, that I'm still getting my workout in and, having fun. I have, kind of a team atmosphere, but ultimately I think just the family environment there, because I did, and I still do feel like we are a big old family over there at Severna Park. And, there might be, some days, we're not feeling it, but we know that with each other. We
Yeah.
still,
You can tell when your teammates are off.
yeah, we take care of each other, and that's what I do appreciate about work with this team and just being here. So thank you, Coach Chrissy, for being part of that.
Yeah.
So I think I took up enough of your time for today. Thank you for doing this. This was really awesome, and let me just say, this was informative and fun. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed just hearing your experiences and just everything that's going on up there in your head regarding jiu-jitsu.
There's a lot. I mean, I think after so much time, it's like you kind of lose track of it after a point, especially like just being in this sport for a while, and like not even jiu-jitsu, but also Muay Thai. Like there's always funny, crazy stuff going on. Like like some of it obviously you can't like put out there, but there's always crazy stuff going on because it's like you get people from all walks of life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. It's as I've seen several different first time students come through versus veteran students from other schools come through. Everyone's different that walk through those doors, and that's just me talking about what 6 years, five or 6 years of experience, and just kind of minimal experience versus you're there. Like,
I'm there all day, every day.
it's like if I show up and I don't see you, I'm like wait, where's Coach Chrissy?
I think, funny enough, I think that I've only called out maybe like a dozen times over the entire time I've been working at the gym. It's always like something crazy happens, right?
Yeah.
So it's very seldom that I'm not there.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I know there's a period too where I didn't want to be anywhere but there. Like, if I wasn't at work, I would go over to the gym. If I called out from work for some nonsense, like I didn't feel great, I'd still end up at the gym somehow, some way. There's some days I have to force myself out of there, knowing that my wife has to go to work, and it's like, okay, I gotta go, but I want to be here.
I know. I think especially when we used to have the morning sessions, it was, dude, I would be like there in the middle of the day, like just working, and people would just show up to hang out, and I'm like, all right, guys, all right, you gotta get out of here.
I was late to therapy several times because the morning class would end, and I would just sit around, hang out, and talk with the guys afterwards. Drill leaving. And then I text my therapist, hey, I'll be there 10 minutes late. So, otherwise, this was great. Thank you so much for doing this. And for everyone out there that's listening, thank you. Again, appreciate everybody that downloads, streams, whatever you may, however you listen to this. Thank you. I appreciate it. Big shout out to my buddy Zach over at Soon to BJJ. He's working on a project right now. Champions Keep Score. Please keep an eye out for that. I'll be posting some more content from him related to that. Also shout out to Nerd Rage Radio. We just did episode 300. By the time this comes out, we'll probably be on 302, 303. So check those guys out. That's a big deal. And I was on episode 300. So, go check me out. Otherwise, if y'all have any questions, concerns, feel free to reach out to me, bjj.wiki on Instagram or Off the Mats Podcast on Instagram. Want to be a guest, let me know too, because I'm shy. I'm not going to ask you. You got to ask me. Otherwise, y'all keep listening, and I will keep making these. Thank you, y'all.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Deep with it. Now let me sing a song.